Today we are going to look at how to replace the faceplate on the Jumper Bumblebee. It looks like an incredibly simple job, and for that very reason I wasn't even going to record a video. I would have assumed that you would just take the screws out to remove the back, and then there would be a few screws dotted around when you look at the faceplate, and it's as simple as that. Unfortunately, it's nowhere near as simple as that. You have to dismantle the whole entire radio. So we've got a full tutorial coming up on the channel. It does start a little bit weirdly, which is why I thought I'd come out here and just show you the finished results, and then following on from the finished results, obviously we'll start with the tutorial. But like I say, it does start halfway through purely because I wasn't even sure that I was going to even make a video, because I just thought, oh, this will be really simple and straightforward. So let's get on with it. So welcome to another video on squadding quads. Now we are going to do a face plate swap on the Jumper Bumblebee. This is the original that's now off, and we're going to show you how to swap the Jumper Bumblebee faceplate. Now, if we take a look at the back of this faceplate, we can see that there are screw holes here, 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 and here. What you need to do first of all is turn your controller over. Get your gimbal protector that came in the box, put it on. Once you've done that, take off the side rubber panels, and then you've got screws around here, 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 and here to take off. Once you've done that, this then folds up, and then we're going to cut to the part of the video now where I'm sat there scratching my head, absolutely baffled at exactly what's just happened, because I've taken it apart expecting the easiest job in the world, only to be confronted by something that I just never, ever expected to have to do. My advice to you is, if you've got one of these, follow this video. I go as slowly as I possibly can, purely because of just how crazy it is. Quads from the future here. And unfortunately, when I recorded this video, I did it in slow motion, which made perfect sense to me because it was easier to slow it down for you guys. Unfortunately, by doing it in slow motion, the voiceover that I did at the time has not copied over. Lesson learned, I wasn't aware that recording in slow motion disables the audio. Although my camera did tell me that, I paid no attention to it. I was a man and pushed on anyway. So once you've removed that back cover, you then need to, the top of your controller, or the back of the controller, will be at the top, and as you can see there's two wires at the top. You need to just disconnect them very carefully, and what that does then is give you the controller in one on the desk. And this is how we're going to do it. So once you've undone the screws, you just very gently fold the back of the radio to the top. As you're doing that, those two cables that we've just seen hanging free are then connected to the very top, or the back plate, because you're doing everything in reverse and upside down, aren't you? So what you need to do, very simply obviously, is just pull them out, but just make sure that you pull them in a straight line. Make sure you don't pull them up or pull them down. Just do it very carefully. Now your two shoulder buttons are momentary buttons that we did a tutorial on the other week. They're going to fall out, so just take them out before they fall out and you lose them. And then just very gently pull these cables straight out in a straight line. It's so easy to pull them at an angle, but you will cause damage to them. So just pull them in a straight line. They are a little bit stiff, so if you need to just move them a tiny bit left and right, then do that. But it's a fairly simple and straightforward process. But just take your time, don't rush it. You've got a lot more to do, so rushing this point is going to be futile and only cause you problems when you then try and put it back on. Once you've done that, you can then place it down on the desk safely until we've come back to it in a short while. I say a short while, it will probably take quite a while. It was a very stressful process. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. Let's move on. So there are now 6 screws around the edges. You've got 4 on the bottom edge, as you can see, and 2 on the top edge next to the 2 red switches. You need to take those out first. I'm really sorry. As far as I'm aware, I recorded that, but I've checked all the footage and it isn't here. So whether I didn't press record or not, I was quite stressed, as you can imagine. But you can see at the bottom, look, there's 4. So there's 2 in a straight line near the battery, and then there's 2 at an angle, and then there's 2 at the top next to the 2 red switches with the screws removed. That's your first job, okay? Now, once you've done that, you need to remove the ELRS module. The ELRS module is held on with the fan, as we can see in the middle. to do this, the first thing you're going to need to do is unscrew the 2 screws in the top of the fan. This I think is a 2mm hex. I think the others are 1.5 from memory. Now you are going to eventually take this whole circuit board and everything out. So undo the gimbals or remove the gimbal connectors to the boards. Again, same thing. There's no catches, there's no locks. It's literally just pull them out, and so they're nice and free. Now you've also got the speaker at the bottom as well, which you're going to need to pull out, because like I said, this whole circuit board is going to come out. This is a lot of work for what is a little bit of a payoff, and the yellow is actually quite nice. I prefer the yellow. I probably should have kept the yellow on. Anyway, let's move on. So you guys all know how to unscrew screws, right? So we put the screwdriver on and we turn it left and out it comes, and that's it. Now once you've done that, you've got to be very careful, because underneath here is a UFL connector. The UFL connector is the antenna of the ELRS. If you break the connector to this, you are going to cause yourselves all sorts of problems, and will probably need a new radio. I don't know if Jumper sell the ELRS module separately or not. Now, once you've done that, you've then got a couple of screws to take out of the heatsink itself. The fan screws actually hold the fan and the heatsink into the board, and then the other 2 are just for the heatsink. Once we've done this, like I say, you've got to then be super careful. So do not go gung-ho into this. I am somebody who, as I'm getting older, I am learning the virtue of patience. If this would have been me 5 years ago, I would have ripped this out. I would have smashed it up. I would have had nothing left but a pile of circuit boards. Because, like I say, it's just, you just don't expect it. Initially, I've got to be honest, when I looked at these fronts, I thought, oh, they're going to be clip-on and clip-off like a Nokia. For anybody who's old like me and a boomer, you'll remember the Nokia 3210, I think it was. You could just clip the faces on and off, and that's what this looked like, but it's really not right. So lift this up very, very carefully, and then on the underside is a UFL connector. Remove that UFL connector from the UFL connector port. Very, very carefully. You can see there it is. Look, so just pop it off very, very carefully. UFL connectors are notoriously fragile, so the last thing you want to be doing is causing yourselves any problems. So that is your ELRS module, and it is plugged into the top. I didn't feel the need to actually remove the power to it. To be fair, it's fine. Just move your UFL cable out of the way. And what should now happen is this whole circuit board should now lift up. I think I was just double checking myself before I wrecked myself, unless I'd missed a screw. I think I may have missed a screw. Like I say, it struck me as a process that would be really simple, and maybe I was being optimistic thinking it would just clip on and clip off. But once I realised it didn't, I thought, well, we looked at the screw holes at the beginning of the video and they go around the edge, and I thought, that's okay. It's just the ones around the edge. Take them off and the faceplate will fall off and you can put the new one on. The problem is, not only is that not the case, but what is also the case is you've got the power button and the other buttons that you have to sort of hold in between the faceplate and the radio. Otherwise, if you put them in the wrong way, your radio will just constantly turn on and off. Ask me how I know this fact. Yeah, it happened to me. I think I must have put this back together 3 times. So, once we've got rid of those extra 2 screws that I completely forgot about, we can now remove the circuit board. And it's just a case of very gently, these things are fragile, so just be super, super careful. Don't go gung-ho, take your time, don't pull it by any cables. Oh, you've also got the ribbon cable in the middle. Silly me, this is where I forgot about the ribbon cable and nearly ripped it off. So all you need to do with the ribbon cable is there is a latch on top of it. You just need to lift the latch up. I will realise in a second, but you just need to lift up that latch on that ribbon cable. And once you've lifted that ribbon cable up, everything is then free. And if you just lift the circuit board up very slightly, it will just fall out of that retaining clip. So here we go now. The easy part is almost done. And out it comes. I've kept this in slow motion just just to make it a little bit easier to follow. It may not be the most entertaining video in the world, but it should be a lot easier to follow. And there is the easy part done. As you can see, the ELRS is still connected. I don't know if I did disconnect the power in a minute or if I just left it. I think I just left it at this point. I'd lost the will to live. I'll be completely honest with you guys. And obviously that's the ribbon cable for the screen. So we've got the buttons there. Now what's causing us not to be able to do it is these two screws here, look, in the middle. These two screws, and if you flip your radio around and have a look at it now, you'll see that that's the lanyard holder. So it's that lanyard holder that could have just been screwed in. Didn't need to be screwed in from the back, really. Well, I suppose it did, but I'm sure they could have done it in a better way than this. But anyway, let's not complain. Let's just get the job done. That's what we do. That's how we do it. Well, to be fair, I complain lots, constantly. So once we've undone these two screws, what's then going to happen is your lanyard holder is going to fall onto your desk, your power button is going to fall out, your faceplate is going to fall out, and you're going to think, brilliant, we've made progress, and we have. But like I say, that's the easy part done. Now it gets a bit difficult. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. What you've got to be super careful of is that power button needs to go where it is rather than the other way around. So the easiest way of doing it is by keeping everything sort of face down now and then just feeling the new one back in. And then it's just a case of reversing that process. And I know that sounds quite extreme, like, oh, got to do all that. But once you've taken it apart, it's actually not too bad. It's, like I say, it's probably not something that I would recommend to your average sort of FPV flyer unless you really want a different colour than what has been shipped with. This is not something that I'll do again. So let's move on to putting it back together. So put the faceplate on in the position it's in. The buttons that have all fallen out, make sure you put them back in from this angle. Try not to tip it up, and then that way nothing will fall out. You need to grab your lanyard holder and you need to put your lanyard holder back in. This button that I'm struggling with here will only go in one way. So if you spin it around, unfortunately I had to take it off the desk a couple of times, sorry. If you spin it around, you will find the right position for it. And once you've done that, like I say, your lanyard holder can go back in and you can screw that back in. And that will secure most of it before you get everything else back in. We need to start by lining that circuit board up that we've just removed back into all the holes that we've just taken it out of. Now, probably the most difficult part is making sure you get that ribbon cable through the middle. It took me a few times to line it up. Sometimes you might have to get a screwdriver and just line it up. My advice is get it through the middle, and once it's through the middle, don't crimp it down until everything else is in position. Maybe even put a couple of screws in, and then crimp the ribbon cable down for the screen. And then that way, you know, one, it's not going to come back out, and you also know that two, you're not going to damage it in case you haven't got it lined up properly and something has to come out and you don't realize you've done it. Once it's through that hole, it's not going to cause you a problem. But like I say, if it's crimped in. So then your next jobs are going to be plugging in the gimbals. I'm just trying to make my screen bigger as I'm talking. There we go. So you're going to plug in the gimbals and you're going to plug in the speaker at the bottom. Now, each one of these can only go in one way, but just double check that you don't try and force it in the wrong way. That's really important. As we can see, we've got the ribbon cable through the hole in the middle, but we're putting everything else in first. We're going to put a few screws in, and then we'll move on to putting the ribbon cable back in, and then the ELRS back on. And finally, we might have something resembling a working radio if all goes well. I'll speed this next part up, but essentially what you're doing is you're putting all the screws back into the screw holes that you've taken them out from. Make sure that when you put your ELRS module back in, that you put the screws in first and then you line up the fan. It can only go one way because of the length of the fan cable, power cable, that's it. Make sure that you've dealt with your ELRS antenna very, very carefully. Just attach it back to the UFL, put it back in the way it's come out, and just be super, super careful about how fragile it is. And then it's a case of all the screws go back into exactly where they've come from. And then you just need to put the back of the radio. So you need to put your switches back in exactly as you've took them off. You need to plug those plugs back in exactly as you've taken them off. and then it's just the 6 screws around the outside of the back of the radio, and you're finally finished. And finally, once you're happy that everything's back in exactly the way that you've taken it out, it's time to test it. Hit that power button, make sure it powers on, and make sure it doesn't instantly power straight back off because you've put the button in the wrong position. And that is how you replace the faceplate on the Jumper Bumblebee. I think Jumper have made it far too difficult for people to do. I think it could have been made so much more simply, but it is what it is. You've got a tutorial now if you want to undertake it. These faceplates are like £2 from AliExpress, so the actual parts are really cheap, but doing the job itself takes so much time and effort. You've got ribbon cables that you need to undo, you've got fans to undo, you've got circuit boards to lift, you've got plugs to undo, and I just don't think it's worth the risk for the average hobbyist. If you're somebody that loves to tinker and take things apart, you're going to absolutely love this. And like I say, for a couple of quid, it does make it look a lot better in my opinion. Channel colours. As always, if you've got any questions whatsoever, please do drop them down below and I'll be more than happy to answer them. Peace out.